Beijing blocks rare earths, the US hits back with 100% tariffs. In 3 days it went from head-on collision to capitulation, with the CCP forced to soften up to stop the bleeding, and the Trump-Xi meeting in Korea proceeding as planned. This isn't just a cooling of the trade war, it's a reshuffle of the global chessboard. Trump is waging a tariff war in Asia, pushing a peace deal in the Middle East, and geopolitically choking off the Belt and Road. Beijing grabs rare earths, America grabs the entire map. The rare earth war has only begun, the real showdown is in Korea. Don't miss the next drop, subscribe and enable the bell. This time, Beijing really overplayed its hand. Just 3 days after blocking rare earths, the US struck back hard. Trump announced a 100% tariff on all Chinese goods. With one stroke, global markets blew up, gold spiked to a record $4,089, Chinese exporters froze orders overnight, and factory owners groaned, the nightmare is back. Result, 3 days later, Beijing panicked. The CCP abruptly changed its tune, export controls are not a ban. You heard right, talked tough for 3 days, then softened. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent immediately confirmed the Trump-Xi meeting in Korea will proceed as scheduled. 3 days of collision, 3 days to pivot, this rare earth war nearly became a nuclear blast. U.S. Trade Representative Greer put it even more bluntly, the CCP thought it could control the tempo, then didn't even dare pick up the phone. Beijing's line about postponing the call became a running joke. Even more striking, Trump's moves weren't random shots. He's simultaneously pushing a peace accord in the Middle East, backed by an economic artery that could choke China's Belt and Road, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC. Beijing squeezes rare earths, Trump squeezes the entire map. So this cooling isn't a Beijing win, it's America forcing a bow. Trump moved just 3 pieces, raise tariffs, push peace, reset the board. She went from hardline countermeasures to soften up and stop the bleeding in 3 days. The question is, if they yield this time, what about the next? How many rounds of this bumper car diplomacy can the CCP withstand? The rare earth war is only the appetizer, the real showdown is in Korea. Rare earth war, a narrow de-escalation. On October 13, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that since the U.S. and China had de-escalated the trade dispute, President Trump would still meet Xi Jinping in Korea as planned. Bessent was referring to October 9, when the CCP unexpectedly expanded rare earth export controls. Trump then announced on October 10 a 100% tariff on all Chinese goods and export controls on all critical software. Sensing serious trouble, Beijing abruptly softened on the 12th, asserting that export controls are not a prohibition. The same day, the Trump administration said it was willing to reach an agreement with China to ease the new trade tensions. Bessent noted there had been extensive communications over the weekend. He told Fox Business, "We have significantly cooled things down. President Trump has stated the tariffs take effect November 1st. He will meet with Chinese Communist Party Chairman Xi Jinping in Korea. I believe that meeting will still happen as scheduled." Bessent stressed, China, the CCP, is a command and control economy, but they can neither command us nor control us. Still, the de-escalation looked a bit harrowing. U.S. Trade Representative Greer revealed that after Beijing announced expanded rare earth export controls, the U.S. quickly reached out, but Beijing postponed the call. In an interview on Fox News Sunday Briefing, Greer said, "We received no notification about this measure. We learned of it from public channels, immediately sought a call with them, but they postponed speaking with us." Greer believes the CCP did this to seize control. He also said that as things stabilized, a Trump-Xi meeting remained possible. Trade war clouds not cleared. On October 13, gold markets saw another stunning breakout, briefly hitting an all-time intraday high of $4,089.89 per ounce. On October 10, Trump announced a 100% tariff on Chinese imports and plans to impose export controls on critical software starting November 1, countering the CCP's export controls on critical minerals. Despite some cooling, UBS analyst Giovanni Stanovo said, China trade tensions remain a market focus. Although the situation has temporarily eased, the threat of an additional 100% tariff still exists. He added, strong, ongoing investment and central bank gold purchases will continue to support prices. Our target is $4,200 per ounce. With the tariff threat unresolved, risks to China's economy have risen. The Wall Street Journal reported on October 13 that after President Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 145% in April this year, U.S. customers froze orders with Chinese manufacturers, a familiar scene for tens of thousands of factories across China, dealing a severe blow to China's economy. Alan Chow, who runs a toy factory in southern China, likewise received notices from U.S. clients. The resulting cash crunch nearly collapsed his business. Only in mid-May, when the U.S. and China agreed to a trade truce and rolled back most tariffs, did Chow resume shipments and breathe easier. Now, with the CCP picking a rare earth fight again, sky-high tariffs that could sever U.S. China economic ties may return. For Chow and tens of thousands of Chinese factory owners, it's a nightmare. Chow said this is an outright embargo, who will still do business with China. These factory owners are the reason China became a manufacturing powerhouse, the economic base for Xi Jinping's bid to overtake the U.S. This year, China's exports have been relatively strong, cushioning the sharper-than-expected downturn and preventing a cliff-like collapse. Customs data show that in the first 9 months, exports to the U.S. fell nearly 17% year-over-year, while overall exports rose about 6%. Export growth slowed to 4.4% in August before rebounding to 8.3% in September. Consumption and investment remain sluggish, overcapacity drives brutal competition and price wars, the CCP's anti-involution campaign has had little effect, and economic pressures are mounting. Xi doesn't feel the pain of domestic disinflation, he only sees exports holding up well enough under tariff war conditions, which may embolden him to escalate trade conflict with the U.S. Ishwar Prasad, a Cornell trade policy professor and former IMF official, argues that with China's domestic demand persistently weak and global concerns rising over cheap Chinese goods, harsher rare earth controls will backfire. If the U.S. and China decouple, China's export pillar collapses, and the CCP's 5% GDP growth target evaporates. Toymaker Chow said his clients are shocked by the latest twists and are closely watching to decide whether to pause production. A batch of Christmas-themed toys is already en route to the U.S. and will arrive before the new tariff rate takes effect, but other pending orders are at risk. Lose future orders, and business gets hard to sustain. Even under the current 30% tariff, Chow's revenue this year is already about half of last year's. He may ultimately move some production to Southeast Asia so customers can avoid higher tariffs on Chinese goods. He considered that earlier this year, but shelved it after the tariff truce made exporting from China feasible again. Adam Dai, founder of Hunan-based exporter Miracle Fireworks, said some U.S. customers have asked to delay shipments. They'll wait a few days to assess, then decide what to do. If new additional tariffs take effect, Dai expects an impact similar to April's. The U.S. relies on China for fireworks. About 99% of consumer fireworks and 75% of display-grade fireworks imported by the U.S. come from China, according to the American Pyrotechnics Association and the National Fireworks Association. Dai said that after many fireworks makers struggled through the last tariff surge, a local industry association encouraged exporters to diversify beyond the U.S., but that shift isn't easy. He is certain all customers will pause shipments, and then there will be no goods moving from China to the U.S. If the policy lasts, his company will have to suspend production and wait. Some believe even if the 100% tariff does take effect, it won't last long. Analysts think the two sides might dial back tensions before punitive measures kick in. Trump and Xi had already planned to meet at a regional leaders gathering in Korea at the end of the month. Jeffy Ma, who runs Guangzhou-based cap maker Ace Headwear, is watching closely to see if customers temporarily shelve U.S.-bound orders. Dan Wang, head of China research at political risk firm Eurasia Group, said U.S. China tensions are intensifying, but Trump's threat of a 100% tariff is hard to enforce. She believes Trump wants China to pay an entry fee to access the U.S. market, not sky-high, fully decoupling tariffs. Trump's dual-track diplomacy, negotiation plus deterrence. Bloomberg reported on October 13 that U.S. Vice President Vance urged Beijing to choose a rational path, saying the dispute means more losses for Beijing and that Trump holds the stronger hand. Vance said, "This is a game that must be handled carefully and depends largely on how China responds. If they respond in a highly aggressive way, I can assure you the U.S. president has more leverage than the PRC. But if they choose to be rational, the U.S. will be as well." Trump later issued a statement hinting he could offer Xi a way to resolve the trade conflict, while warning that a full-blown trade war would hurt China. The statements by Trump and Vance indicate that Washington aims to keep pressure on the CCP to reverse its recent trade moves while soothing panic markets and avoiding an uncontrolled escalation. Goldman Sachs economists Jan Hatzius and Andrew Tilton wrote in a note, recent policy moves suggest a wider range of possible outcomes than before prior key U.S. China meetings. They forecast, the most likely outcome seems to be both sides dropping the most extreme policies, with negotiations extending the May tariff escalation pause, perhaps indefinitely. Now may not be the time for Washington to blow things up with Beijing. Trump is trying to finish a big job, Middle East peace. Middle East peace equals shutting down the Belt and Road. On October 13th, Trump addressed Israel's Knesset, saying that after 2 years of fighting Hamas and additional clashes with Hezbollah and Iran, Israel had achieved its ultimate battlefield aims and must now focus on peace in the region. The AP reported that although the U.S. brokered Israel-Hamas truce remains fragile, Trump is determined to seize the moment and seek a rare prospect of harmony for the Middle East. Trump urged Israel not to get mired in war, to plan for the post-war order, and said Israel has won everything that could be won by force. He pledged to help rebuild the Gaza Strip, devastated by the conflict, and urged Palestinians to abandon the path of terror and violence forever. Trump also reached out to Iran, saying, the hand of friendship and cooperation is always open. When Israel and Iran briefly fought earlier this year, he ordered strikes on 3 nuclear sites inside Iran. Before heading to the region, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One 3 times that the Gaza war is over, calling it a moment when people of all nations, Jews and Muslims alike, will take to the streets and dance. Asked about the PRC Commerce Ministry's hardline statement on rare earths, Trump brought up Xi, saying she faced a difficult moment over tariffs. Trump reiterated that tariffs are a key instrument of U.S. diplomacy and bargaining power. By wielding tariffs, he defused several conflicts, such as the India-Pakistan standoff. Trump said, I told them, if you're going to go to war and you've got nukes, I'll put 100%, 150%, even 200% tariffs on you. So don't do it. I'll resolve it in 24 hours. If peace takes hold in the Middle East, Trump's larger goal, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, will take shape. The plan was first tabled at the G20 New Delhi Summit in September 2023, with the US, India, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, the EU, France, Germany, Italy, and others signing in Mao to propose a new transport/economic link connecting India, the Middle East, and Europe. It envisions routes from India by sea, land, and rail through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Jordan, and then into Europe, e.g., via Greece, Italy, France, or other ports, linking to European markets. Beyond infrastructure, railways, roads, ports, logistics hubs, it includes energy pipelines, fiber optic communications, digital infrastructure, and integrated investment/regulatory coordination. In Trump's foreign policy strategy, IMEC is part of a Middle East/Eurasia return, reshaping U.S. influence in the region. Observers have long viewed IMEC as a counter to the CCP's Belt and Road, a strategy to contain Beijing. The CCP has tried to keep the region in turmoil via its local proxies, hindering this plan. Once peace arrives, the corridor can be built, and the CCP's influence will be sharply diminished. The CCP's last card. Unwilling to slide quietly toward ruin, the CCP tried to use rare earths to spark a world-level confrontation. On October 13th, China.com, under the PRC State Council, declared that upgrading rare earth export controls is both a necessary move to counter illicit transfers by overseas organizations into sensitive uses and a countermeasure against America's escalating pressure on China, signaling that Beijing is shifting from rare earth supplier to governor of the rare earth order.